I'm really delighted to welcome Kunal Kushwaha to the Risk First podcast. Kunal sits right at the heart of today's cloud-native developer ecosystem. He's currently the senior developer advocate at Cast AI, where he's focused on growing the developer community. And beyond that, he's the founder of WeMakeDevs, a global community teaching millions of people how to code and bringing developers together through hackathons, events, and shared learning. He's also a CNCF Ambassador and a GitHub star, and someone who's deeply committed to empowering developers and strengthening the communities that modern software depends on. Kunal and I met on a Flagsmith podcast, and in the past we've enjoyed excellent vegan food in London. He's a thoughtful, generous, community-minded person, and that's exactly why he's such a great guest for Risk First, because risk in technology isn't just about systems and controls, it's about people and learning and community and the choices developers make every day. So Kunal represents that human side of modern engineering in a really powerful way. Kunal, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Risk First.
Thanks, Rob. Am I the first guest?
You are the third guest.
Third guest. Cool.
Yeah.
Delighted to be here.
So welcome along. Okay, well, let's get straight into it. Kunal, you do a million different things, but let's focus on your kind of day job first of all. So obviously this is the Risk First podcast. So can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do at Cast, and what kind of risks it's trying to address for the developer community?
Yeah, I'm Kunal Kushwaha. Thanks for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it. I lead the developer ecosystem for Cast AI for EMEA. And in the cloud native ecosystem, when you work at an organization, the identity for an organization is defined by a specific friction that it removes from the software delivery lifecycle. And when we talk about this whole cloud native industry, in 2012, 2010 or 14, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, at the AWS reInvent conference, DJC, who's now the current CEO of Amazon, was like, we're going to give part of the profits of Amazon to our customers in form of reduced cloud costs. But in the end, what happened is, the cloud costs has shot up and people are moving away from cloud. People are like, it's just too complex to manage. Kubernetes came into picture and you have like n number of certifications you have to take. So it just became a chaos, like a lot of complexity around this space. If you look at the landscape, it's huge as well. I think that's fine. I mean, Kubernetes is complex because, it's so powerful. I was listening to a talk by Kelsey Hightower and he was like, it was in Berlin or some other country. I can't remember. He was like, I flew here in an aeroplane. That was super complex. That was not complex. I wouldn't be able to do that. So I think the complexity, how you deal with it is how you implement Kubernetes, which is why I'm talking about Kubernetes. So I work in the cloud industry. So our mission is basically to empower the organizations to transcend this manual infrastructure babysitting era. Because we are now in the AI age, and Cast AI, where I work, we basically provide this autonomous engine that treats things that people care about. So performance and reliability as the first-class citizens. You're not going to be caring about cost at the expense of performance and reliability. So like, I'm going to reduce your costs. Cool. But that's going to come at a cost of performance and reliability. People don't want that. They're happy to pay a lot of money, which is why the focus of Cast AI is performance, reliability, first-class citizens. And that in turn, leads to reduced cost savings. I work in developer relations. So I talk to a lot of cloud native developers, CTOs, infrastructure engineers, SREs, platform engineers. So it's been fun. I've been here like 4 or 5 months now, and it didn't feel like that. It went by like this. I've been traveling a lot, part of the DEVREL job.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. We can talk about Kubernetes, cloud all day.
No, I think this is this is my observation as well. It's like, and it's something I talk about in Risk First quite a lot. Is complexity on its own has all these knock-on effects, like you say. So complexity risk, it adds reliability risk, it adds security risk, it adds communication risk, and as you've said, like there's cost risks as well. I mean, personally, I've been bitten a number of times where I set up some cloud infrastructure and then the costs have just exploded beyond what I thought, and I've ended up having to throw the can on something. But
that's a good point. There's a persistent gap between what your application requires and what the infrastructure supplies. And these organizations struggle with, we've seen this, a lot of people struggle with over-provisioned environments, and your teams just cannot keep up with the constant, I'm tuning my Kubernetes clusters. What is the requirement for that? And now that's leading to high error rates, and there's increased latency, and there's a lot of financial waste. I met someone, I'm not going to name the company, literally yesterday, and they were like, oh, we're going to just not do Kubernetes. We are a retail service provider. I don't want to babysit my clusters and whatnot. And I introduced them to Cast, and they were quite impressed. So, and this waste is also, not like a minor operational inefficiency. Early by the end of last year, which was 2025, the industry estimates sort of like indicated that the cloud waste accounted for nearly around 30 to 35 or 32, I don't remember, around 30% of the total cloud spend, which is amounting to upwards of $230 billion annually. Which is why, companies like us, Lithuania's fifth unicorn now, which is quite cool. But a lot of organizations are putting resources into, even outside Cast AI, there's open source solutions, like people use Carpenter and stuff. So we as a company and community have to make sure that we are not sort of like telling those people who are using open source projects like Carpenter, like, no, we're going to replace Carpenter. We're going to replace the open source modules and the infrastructure you already have in place. So as a company, you have to be a developer's best friend. So you work with open source projects, and I think that's a good answer.
I think this is an interesting point that he makes. The cloud, the idea of the cloud has sort of transformed the way we build software systems now. When it first came along, it sort of relieved a lot of that operational overheads. I remember when I started working in banking, I was building software systems, but I was also like filling in spreadsheets saying, well, this is the kit I'm going to need to use. These are the servers I want you to buy and the processors I need. And this is how much memory. And then it would go off and it would get provisioned and somebody would buy all those things and they'd get delivered to a room and set up. Obviously, that was a lot of work. And so this, clicking buttons just to set this stuff up is a huge change. But as you say, like, it feels now that for about the last maybe 10 or so years, what we've been trying to do is build abstractions on top of that help us manage all those different risks better. So like Cast, I think there are lots of companies doing this kind of thing. Like you mentioned Carpenter as well. Like what they're trying to do is like to provide a new abstraction that minimizes risks. And we're sort of, everybody's experimenting with these different abstractions and different business models for doing this at the moment. And at some point, something new will click, a bit like Kubernetes did, where everyone's like, yes, this is how it should work. And we'll start the next thing again and build on top of that. And we're taking all the risks of that into it.
It's always been about doing less. People were spinning up servers. Like if you wanted to scale, you had to physically add more servers. In the 90s, I wasn't even born then. And then came virtualization. You don't have to, you can just use virtual machines, non-physically divide your infrastructure. You can have virtual machines, operating systems on top of that. Then came Kubernetes around 2014. And then things became more portable. So we did this whole thing. And I think now where the industry is headed is like we build the cloud. And now the next phase is teaching the cloud to think, which is obvious because of the whole AI advancement. And that's where we're headed next. So the AI handles the infrastructure, this manual tuning. You can focus on building. You don't have to babysit your clusters. And that is where we are headed.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. One of the problems I think with this though is that there are so many different tools you can use. So the landscape of like options is vast. And so there's this, and I guess this is tied into your job, right? Because what we need to do is to get developers to understand all these options. And it's a crowded marketplace of different ideas where need to try and educate developers on why they should use your thing rather than another thing. Just keeping track of this and keeping on top of all these different options and learning about new things as they go along. This is super hard work in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're like the connective tissue between the people who build the software and those who use it. As a developer relations person, every company does it differently. Feel like, I mean, a DevRel is a developer's best friend. So one thing we talk about when we speak of developer relations is, well, not just DevRel, any role at the company. Everyone asks themselves, what impact am I making in the company? You're a graphic designer, you're a salesperson, you're a web developer, you're a marketing professional, you're a developer relation person, even you're a CEO, CTO. You're like, what is my role at the company? What impact am I making? With DevRel, it's been notorious for being hard to define the KPIs, which I feel like is just, I mean, I can't find the right word. I think it shouldn't be that hard because it's pretty straightforward to me. Tie everything to business KPIs. Now that's very important. Some people are like, no, you shouldn't. But no, in the end, if it's a company, you're working at a business and you don't tie the work that you're doing to business KPIs, when they do layoffs, guess who will be the first to go? This is why we saw, I don't know if you remember, a lot of DevRels got laid off during the whole massive layoff scenario that took
Right.
place.
Yeah. Because
We
they
were
were.
seeing in news, everything you do, tie it in with business KPIs. A lot of people are like, oh no, DevRel doesn't do sales, DevRel doesn't do pipeline generation. I just care about leads and events and meetups. Yeah, I mean, those are mediums, but you have to tie everything in with business KPIs.
So what can you give me an
Yeah.
example of that then? So what would be an example of the business KPI that DevRel should help meet?
If you're if you're doing a meetup or a conference, you don't just measure the number of leads. So number of leads is an interesting concept. I mean, sometimes it's good, but if you're just focused on getting leads and getting bad scans, and you're like, I got 1,000 leads, there's no way that person is replying to your email. Just if you have a business email, do you know how hard it is for people to get a reply? Because that person met 200 companies at the booth, at the conference. They're not going to reply until they're genuinely interested. So you have to build that relationship. You have to talk to them. I never pitch Cast AI as a first solution. I always ask them, what do you do? How's it been? I genuinely, it's not like I am doing it for my job. I genuinely do it because I do like talking to people. I do like talking to people about non-tech related things a lot because that's like on the human level. I was at this one party and I was like, been talking about AI and agents and MCP all day. So the guy was like, you look a little tired. I'm like, yeah, it's just been a long day. It was it was in some, oh, it was KubeCon Atlanta. It was KubeCon Atlanta. And then I'm like, and he was like, oh, we can talk about non-tech stuff. What do you like to do? What kind of movies do you like? I'm like, I like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And this guy is like, are you kidding? He showed me his laptop. Only he had one sticker on it, which was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I genuinely care about, as a DevRel, I genuinely care about meeting nice people. And that in turn leads to, like, obviously business deals. And if you're in a company, so with Cast AI, I'm in a very fortunate space because almost any company who is using the cloud can use Cast AI. So it's very easy for me to bring that value proposition. And when you have like big companies like Mercedes-Benz, Louis Vuitton, Hugging Face using your company's tools at Cast AI, so it makes it easier to sell. But I take it from a DevRel point of view. I take it from a human angle. I focus on like those sort of like human connections. I would focus on prioritizing like booking a meeting later on. I would focus on giving them a demo, connecting with them on LinkedIn. So I think LinkedIn is quite awesome in that sense. And then you tie everything into whatever sales platform you use, HubSpot, Salesforce. I mean, those are the big ones. And there you can see like, we did this event. It generated this much dollars of new pipeline or whatever. And then you tie everything in with sort of like the KPI shouldn't be just the metrics, like X number of leads, but it should also be the depth of engagement. So doing a webinar has little depth as compared to talking to someone in a room full of workshop, if that makes sense. So you have to decide what type of events, what sort of engagements you're doing, which is like bringing that depth. But in the end, tying everything to how much money you're making.
Yeah, so I think right, absolutely. So at the end of the day, like pretty much everyone in a company, you're focused on managing certain risks, and at the end of the day, it's funding risk. You're trying to keep the company funded and making enough money. Guess the sort of the breaking that down a bit. You're looking to communicate with developers and make sure that the marketplace understands what it is your company's doing, and you're also, yeah, I guess you're also trying to look at um, like you say, like the relationships with developers. So does that mean that you're able to listen to them and understand their needs, and if there's things missing, you're sort of feeding that background as well, so improving the market positioning of the product or the features of the product? Does that happen too?
Yeah, there's two ways to developer advocacy. There's the internal developer advocacy and the outward developer advocacy. Outward, everyone knows you're out there teaching people about your tools and the ecosystem. And the internal advocacy is you talk to your customers, you talk to your prospects, you talk to the community members, and you listen to, how is it that they're solving. Sorry. So with developer advocacy, yeah, I agree. There's two ways to it: the internal developer advocacy and the outward developer advocacy. Outward is like you're preaching about the project. You're like, this is how you use our project, and this is what we do, and all the other things. Internal is more about your collecting that feedback from the community, from your customers, even from the landscape, what these people are doing. Sort of like compile that and you share it with your engineering team. Like, this is what we need on the roadmap. This is what we need to do. But yeah, I see myself speaking to a lot of people at events, at conferences. I think with developers, it's just very hard to, it's not hard to sell. It's just that they don't like being sold to. Some people, they're like, I would rather be coding alone in an open source project rather than talking to like a salesperson, the
Yeah.
introverted developers. So your answer to that is your product should speak for itself. The person signs up to the product, sees the value proposition, and then the salespeople come in and they're like, okay, this is what we do. Not like people sign up to the project and then the salespeople come in.
Mm.
Let them
Yeah.
let them try the product themselves, which is what Cast does very well.
Yeah. I think that's what all products have to do now, isn't it? Is to like let people try things out, especially when it's IT products. You don't have to go anywhere to pick up a physical thing. The marginal cost is zero.
Another good example is like Slack. Slack is super nice with this. You just sign up and you're done, and then it shows you how to pay it.
Yeah. Yes. You've got to overcome that trust.
Yeah, but
People don't trust you and to give you their money until they've used the thing and know that it's
yeah,
gonna help them.
it comes down to like technical empathy. So you have this ability to speak to the developer in their language authentically, and you understand the challenges first, and then you sort of like present like, okay, this is what we do, and we really think we can help you, and you lead by example. This is how we work with this company. This is a case study of this company. Some testimonials here and there.
Well, that's a really good point, right? So let's let me ask you the question of how you ended up with this job then, because I think your previous experience all sort of leads you to this point, doesn't it? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of, like, started contributing to open source in my freshman year, and then yeah, just kept contributing to Kubernetes while I was in uni. I started working at this one startup as a data engineer. So I was building like data pipelines and stuff, working with Kubernetes there as well. And then I started working at Civo, which is a cloud provider based in UK, but they have data centers all over the globe. And I was at Civo for a while, like 5 years, close to 5 years or something. And I think Civo basically gave me that boost in my career because when I joined, we were like, well, I joined as an intern, and then I did developer relations. And then I graduated and I did the develop. I became a DEVREL manager. So I moved to London right after graduating. I had an offer from Civo already because I was working there while I was a student. So I was working at Civo while I was a student. Graduated, and the CEO Mark was like, "Yeah, you have a full-time job. Let me know when you graduate and you can come to London." So I did that. In September 2022, I came to London. And then Civo was expanding in like India and other regions. And then I got an opportunity to lead that project. So literally building data centers in India. I was promoted to field CTO. So I was doing a lot of stuff, go to market. I was even doing sales a lot, marketing as well, because India region was very new, hiring people. I was literally building was, like, this is how much sort of like capacity we need in this data center. I was selecting which city in India we should first build the data center. So we ended up going with Mumbai. I was talking to these giants of networking in India, like Tata, Airtel. I was talking to co-location service providers for shipping the racks and building that connectivity. So that's how it works in India. Like in most countries, there are co-location service providers. Even like the big cloud providers like AWS, Oracle, and everyone in India, they do like co-location services. So I learned so much. And then building that server rack, like working with the team who was shipping that server rack and building it, nitty-gritty hardware, wiring, talking to the team. And then obviously dealing with customs when the rack arrives in India. It's at the port in Mumbai. And then we did the custom documents because if you're shipping like a 500 kilo server racks, multiple of them, then it's like, so it's a big region in India that Civo has invested around 200 crores. So setting that up was, and the CEO Mark was just like, yeah, Kunal, you can do it. So not everyone is going to give you that opportunity. And he trusted me that with that. So I think and I was like 23, 24. And the region went, so I do owe a lot to Sivo to give
Yeah,
me that
that's
platform. So they were like, then I was field CTOs. I moved out of the DevRel space at Sivo. It was mainly like customers getting the region live, big boy stuff.
well, yeah. Let's
And
so
then,
hold
yeah,
on
now,
before you carry
yeah.
on. I just want to stop you there because that on its own is super interesting because as you say, you were like in your early 20s for this, and
Yeah.
you're basically being asked to do a job or follow a process where you don't know what the process is. And this is something
No.
this is something I kind of experienced early in my career as well. I was asked to set up not on the same scale as you, but I was asked to build a data center for one company, right? So
Mm.
nothing crazy. But yeah, it was a case of like, well, I have no idea how this process works. There's nobody around to show me how it works. I'm just going to have to figure it out and go through it.
Yeah.
And this is something I talk about in process risk in the risk first book, and it is interesting, right? And what they're really testing is, do you have that sort of persistence? It's like, are you prepared to keep on probing
Yeah.
the boundaries of this process and keep on going
Yeah.
until it gets done? So it's a very, if you have that skill, that's an amazing.
It was great learning
Yeah.
experience. If anyone wants to set up a data center in India, I have all the information. I know everything. Most of the things now. We have to work a lot with the government. I wasn't alone, obviously. I had amazing team members like Simon, who's the chief commercial officer. So it was a great learning experience for a lot of us. When you're shipping such expensive things to India and working with these big contracts. But the region's live now. It's doing well,
Yeah,
and
nice.
it's been great. Yeah, learned a lot.
Yeah, and as I talk about a lot, it's all about flushing out those hidden risks. I expect you could write a book on all the problems of setting up a data center in a foreign
Yeah.
country that
You're not the
nobody.
first one who has recommended that. When the region was live, people are like, you can now write a guide.
Yes, you could.
We hired a lot of people at Civo, and I'm still a part of Civo, but I felt like, Civo is a cloud provider. So obviously they compete with AWS, GCP, Azure, and a lot of other companies. I felt like, 5 years is a long time, and I wanted to work at a company that is not cloud agnostic, like cloud, which is cloud agnostic,
Hmm.
and wanted to work more on the optimization side of things. So, because that's where I see the future being headed. I got reached out by Cast AI while the India region was getting live. So, back then I was like, "Oh, right now I can't join because the region is not live yet." So, once everything was set up, I joined Cast AI, which has been absolutely incredible. And just every day in the Slack, I see, and every single day, I see like testimonials from customers like, okay, you're giving us so much money back. You're saving us $500,000. Our engineers can now just focus on building. We don't have to babysit our Kubernetes clusters. So that makes me happy. Like, okay, this is where we're headed. And obviously, everyone knows we're in the age of AI, and I spoke about it earlier. We built the infrastructure, we built the cloud. Now we are teaching how the cloud has to be smart. And I think Cast AI is a very good place to be. But it's been 4 months. It's been absolutely 4 to 5 months. Been absolutely incredible. I was going to say something around. Yeah, no, but I still go to the Civo events. I was at Civo Navigate in India, which was amazing. A lot of people. So I was
Right. Yeah.
there keynoting, which was fun. But I mean, one of my roles at Castia is also tied to events as well. A lot of developer communities. So we're doing a big event around KubeCon. It's called KubeAuto Day. We're doing a big event in India in March, CloudXAI in Bangalore, March 14th. So it's been good. Yeah, I don't think much has changed because I'm still in the cloud industry, still helping people how to do cloud right, not be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So I'm gonna we'll get into all the AI stuff in a bit because I really want to hear your side of that. But one of the things I like to talk about on the podcast is like your biggest disaster that you've seen of where risks weren't managed and something horrendous happened, and then we can try and pick apart the sort of the causality of that.
there's one really good story that the New York data center caught fire.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, things happen, and that's how we learn and grow. I feel like so I'm one of those people who believes in that everything happens for a reason. Even if something bad happens to me, I'm like, okay, maybe there was a reason to this because I learned something and that could have prevented something much more drastic in the future. So I mean, there's lots of ideas that come to my mind. Like when I speak to developers, for example, they're like, I mean, at Sibo, for example, people were like, I have to migrate to AWS and what are the benefits? And then I was like, okay, this is how you can do it. So the way we tackle that is we help them in migration, like this is how you can migrate. And this is part of the DevRel job, like building those resources and guides, making it easier for them to onboard to your tools and projects. I mean, at Cast AI, it's, I mean, quite straightforward, but sometimes people are like, it's not Cast AI specific, but they're like, we are moving away from cloud. We are not even going to use Kubernetes. And that is interesting. And I feel like that is fair because it can get quite complex. But this is why companies like Cost exist. Kubernetes is quite complex and we don't want to babysit our clusters. We're spending too much time on this. We're spending a lot of money on over provisioned resources. And that is a good thing because this is exactly why companies like Cost exist. And we give that value proposition to them. Like we handle the automation for you. We increase performance for you, reliability for you. that leads to reduced cost, sometimes around 70% less cost than what you're already paying. There are the risks, but then as a company, you have to figure out like, okay, how are we in a position to address these risks? I think that's a fine thing to do, because if people are like, no, everything's good, I don't need your product, I'm okay, everything's perfect, like life is perfect, then it's harder to sell. But if someone is struggling and your product solves their problem, then it's easier to sell. Regarding the communities, I think I run WeMakeDevs, which is a global community of over 150,000 developers from 20 plus countries. Every single hackathon that the team does, we have a big team now. So every single hackathon or meetup or conference, like they do, like online hackathons. Let's take that for example. Get around 5,000 people take part from 20 plus countries. So it's a big community, and when you manage the expectations, sometimes people are like, why did I not win the project? Why did this person win? And I'm like, there's a detailed, you can't, you get the idea. And the prizes are so high, we get that sort of like, because we keep everything very transparent, all the judging and everything. And even if you're using a specific tool, the maintainers of that tool, they are the ones who judge the project as well. So they know most about the project. But also, like in open source, we've seen like risks around communication sometimes. So if you want to start an open source project, you want people to contribute to your project, make sure you have good documentation, and you make it easy for people to onboard to that project, have a lot of good first issues. This one time we did an open source program. We were like, you can contribute to this project. We have created some issues. And what happened was thousands of developers went to that repository, started contributing, and the maintainers were like, dude, this is a lot. It's good, but it's like a lot. So that was a risk that happened a while back. So you
Yes.
have to set those communications. Like if you want to work on this project, if you want to do this, we see this happening at Hacktoberfest. A lot of spammy PRs and stuff that come.
Mm.
We never had spammy PRs. We just had a lot of people were like, there's one issue and 100 people are like, I want to contribute to this. So how do you assign the person? So when you're running a global community like that, that's what you have to keep in mind. Yeah. It's all
Yeah,
down
I
dials
think
down to communication. Yeah.
the Hacktoberfest thing is a really good example of like the second order effects,
Hmm.
where it seemed like a great idea that we're gonna like we're gonna give T-shirts out to everyone who makes a PR. But then I've been on the receiving end. I've like woken up one morning and seen like 15 PRs on my project and thought, what's going on? And then you've got to read through them and understand. Yeah, it's kind of like the Cobra effect kind of thing, isn't it? Where the intended result is not what you had in mind at all. But yeah, let's just dive into the hackathons thing, the We Make Devs thing for a minute, because I think this is like I think it works, right? Because there's everybody wins. So on the one hand, you're organizing a hackathon, and that's a great venue for like companies to say, oh, we want to sponsor a hackathon, or we want to organize a hackathon. That gives them visibility and
Yeah.
helps them with that communication risk problem we were talking about. Then you have all the developers that show up to the hackathon, and they obviously they hope to win a prize, so that's one thing. But also it's great visibility for them too, because this stuff goes on GitHub. They, show maybe they got a third prize or whatever.
Exactly.
They can talk about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're creating. It's kind of like a marketplace effect where you're solving a lot of communication risk problems for everybody. It's really interesting.
Yeah, we have been getting a lot of requests for like we want to host hackathons. So this month alone, there are 4 hackathons with around 40,000 US dollars in cash prizes.
Yeah,
So hackathons are great. The reason being, I think anything you do in life is sort of like what do you call it? It's like an image of your own experiences. So I am a big believer in. I owe my career to open source, so I'm a big believer in like learning by doing. So tutorials are great. I mean, I teach on YouTube, so I do believe in like okay, watching tutorials is nice, it's good. It's just not going to be as useful if you don't get your hands dirty. So I'm a big believer in learn by doing.
yeah, me too.
Contributing to open source and taking part in events like hackathons are it's like one of the best ways via which you can learn by doing. So it helps the community members. Over 50% of people who take part in the hackathons are working professionals. Only around the other half are students. So it helps them if you want to get involved in like if you want to learn about AI agents, learn about agentic AI, you want to learn about how to build MCP tools and things like that. And you have a hackathon that teaches you to do that with open source projects. Because most of the time at these hackathons, a good thing is that you are getting resources, dedicated support from the community members. So you know that when you build a project to learn about these technologies, you will get that support you will get free credits and things like that. Not just WeMakeDevs, but any hackathon. Like if it's a big hackathon, you will get that support. So big ROI for community members, and then a huge ROI for the sponsors who sponsored the hackathon, because they get like literally thousands of people trying out their project. They get thousands of people building cool projects. So they get like a lot of case studies and testimonials. They get a lot of feedback. We did something with Klein, obviously a huge open source project,
Mm.
coding IDE, open sourced. And they were like, the testimonial you can find on the WeMakeDevs website. And they were like, this was far beyond our expectation. And they said that, we got so much feedback that we implemented it in the next release. So from the sponsor point of view, it is a lot of ROI for them because they literally get developer feedback. And that's what these, dev tools care about, developer feedback, because things are changing so quickly. If you don't move fast, you're going to be left behind. There's a new tool coming out every day. One tool is competing with 10 tools. So you have to iterate a lot. And the best way is to listen to people, listen to developers. Hackathons are one of the ways to do that.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I hadn't really considered that, but yeah, it's the feedback loop of like getting your product in front of developers and actually seeing in real time them using it. That's super valuable feedback, isn't it? And
Yep.
yeah, closing that
Yep.
loop that we talked about earlier. All right, so you've already touched on this. Now, I know you're really embedded in open source Kubernetes, but also I've watched some of your recent videos. You're into LLMs, and you've got like you're testing out open source LLMs and AI coding agents and stuff like that. How do you think? Let me ask a really specific question. How do you think all this agentic change is going to affect the open source ecosystem? What's the effect that you think might happen?
In a good way, I don't think a lot of this would exist without open source. There was a leaked board memo from Google. I believe it was Sundar Pichai, but obviously, can't quote me on that. And the memo said that people are not going to pay for proprietary models when they can get similar performance from open source models. And the other point is, one of the biggest reasons why AI projects fail. Well, first is the funding, money. A lot of projects fail because the organizations don't have money. Second one being they don't have the skills and resources, right? To sort of like implement these AI technologies. All of these issues open source is solving. The open source models now you can use literally for free when you need to pay for infra, but you get the similar performance that you're getting with proprietary models. The latest China is doing so well. The latest Kimi K2.5, like it's amazing because of this open source competition. When like OpenAI open source their model, or open sources them some of their models. So there are like a lot of models that are being, Llama models by Meta, for example. It is driving adoption. It is making it easier for folks to onboard and try these technologies. So I think open source is key actually, and it's actually going to drive the adoption even more. There are open source IDEs. There's like Climb, which I spoke about, and a lot of projects. Yeah, there's just so many projects. So I think open source is key to drive this growth, and specifically in the education space as well. Yeah.
Well, you kind of answered that in a different way to what I was expecting, because here's two visions of the future that I see, right? So I agree with you, first of all, about the open source LLMs. I think that's a great point. I am still paying for like Cursor and stuff, but I can see a point of time where I go out and buy a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio or something and then run it all on a local system because I'm spending so much money with these providers. I actually think that that's kind of something we're going to see a lot more of this year. I think that's going to, I mean, it's already trending upwards and it's only February.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I was really kind of driving towards is the whole point of open source is that it kind of assumes that people are able to modify code. So if I'm using a piece of software and I find something wrong with it, I go and fix it and submit a patch upstream, and then it gets added to the software. I've done this with a bunch of different bits of software that I use. But I've been in a privileged position of being actually a coder, and I can do that, whereas most people aren't. However, with AI now, everyone could potentially find a problem with a piece of software and go and fix it themselves. It's kind of democratizing that, right? So that's one view of the future where everyone's improving open source software all the time. But the other view of the future is that, well, do we even need the open source anymore? Because people could just like vibe code their own database or their own note-taking application or whatever and just use that. So what do you think? How's this gonna are these two views compatible or not? What do you think is gonna happen?
I think open source is more about culture. People like the culture, the whole culture around what you mentioned, like people can come together and contribute. When something becomes easier to do, more people do it. So it's not like less people will code. It's like I said, more people will code. Um, My only concern is around maintainers dealing with AI generated PRs, and there is also like around 96% of projects are using AI in open source one way or another. This was Linux Foundation survey. AI has been quite useful in reviewing PRs. I think that is really cool. I genuinely like that. I've seen a lot of use cases, a lot of tools like, Kodo, CodeRabbit, and there's so many projects out there that are doing that. To answer your question, I don't think so. I think for smaller projects, definitely, yeah, sure. But the open source spirit remains because people want to come together. Even I think even right now, building a complex, like for example, taking your question, if you want to replicate Kubernetes by vibe coding, good luck. Because it's not humans versus AI, it's humans and AI. So it's like you still need to do architecture, you still need to have those intuitions that AI doesn't. There are always going to be these complex projects that you just can't vibe code. Yeah. So and marketing, like for example, I think marketing is going to be one of the really high in demand jobs in the future. Yeah.
That's an interesting statement, right? Because I think my view of marketing, well, before digital marketing, right? Marketing was always really expensive. There's that whole quote about I can put an advert on television. I know half the money I've spent on the advert is wasted. I just don't know which half, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, and marketing used to be much more expensive, but then we have digital marketing now, and it's kind of brought down the cost. It's changed the landscape entirely. Like the companies like Facebook and Google are making all the money, and yeah, and we're already seeing sort of automated digital marketing, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future, right? Like bots,
Yeah, those are just mediums of tools. As a marketing person, you connect with humans on a personal level with that AI just cannot, I think.
right?
So
So it
there's always
becomes
going to be a
more
human in the loop. You can't just say this is my tool to create a whole. Even though you can, the AI can do it today. It literally can. You can build a whole pipeline where you give it your website. It's going to go through the color scheme and the messaging and everything. It's going to create the posters and everything. It's going to schedule it and it's going to post it throughout the month. But do you know how much risk there is to that?
well.
Um, yeah,
Lots, and I think people are gonna get very quickly immune to this, right? They'll just
yeah.
be, in the same way as like, television adverts, I find them very easy to ignore, or like the banner adverts or things like that. I think those sorts of digital adverts we're gonna become immune to, and I think you're right, it'll become back about the human relationships again. But do you think maybe we're gonna end up with adverts for agents? Will you
Oh yeah.
will you be running an advert that appeals to an agent at
So
some point?
I'm not a big fan of that. I mean, you mean like advertisements?
Yeah. So
So I think ChatGPT is doing that. I think they're
right.
going to show you ads.
Yeah, sure. But what about the other way around? Do you think like companies will show agents ads to
Can you
try
give
and,
me an example? Yeah.
well, let's say, okay, so I'm talking to ChatGPT and I say, listen, I need somebody to help me with my cloud costs, right? And ChatGPT might give me 10 or 15,
Oh, you mean that?
but
Uh,
you could start advertising to the ChatGPT in order
yes.
to get your
Yeah. So as a business, I think this is a really good point because I was talking about it like last week. Let's take an example. When you ask ChatGPT to build a website or deploy a project, it's going to recommend Vercel and
right.
it's going to recommend for backend. It's going to be like use Supabase. Do you think Vercel and Supabase are paying OpenAI? No. It's just they are so good at what they do. And this is the product led growth we spoke about earlier. Like these companies are so good at what they do that even LLMs know like, okay, this is like the de facto standard if you want to do something around, like getting your web page up live quickly. So from a company's point of view, you need to be that good that when you ask without even advertising, the LLM should be knowing that, okay, you ask the LLM, where should I host my cloud services? It's going to say AWS, right? It's
Right.
going to say
Yeah.
AWS, GCP, Azure. AWS is not paying OpenAI, or maybe I don't know the whole AI bubble who is paying who, but it's gonna tell you like use AWS. But I do see that happening, but obviously there's going to be like a disclaimer, like this is a sponsored sort of like segment. I don't see that yet, at least in Claude. But if that happens, if ads come to like AI LLMs, even after I'm paying a premium on it, I am gonna self-host. Well, I still do a little bit, but maybe I'm very close to buying a Mac Mini. Haven't done it yet. But this is true. Like to answer your last question, do you know the Malt Book 2024 catastrophe?
Yeah. What are we calling it a catastrophe? Okay.
I mean, this is it not. For those who don't know, the guy was like, I have built this whole platform and I did not write a single line of code. I vibe coded the whole thing. It's like an AI agent market social media
Like a
thing.
Facebook for agents, right?
Yeah, Facebook for agents. You know what happened? 1.5 million API tokens were leaked. 55,000 email addresses were exposed. Probably someone who is watching, you are one of those. And the compromise also had full access to read and write for database. This is 1.5 million API tokens and 35,000 email addresses. So yeah,
That,
this is another
yeah.
like big problem. Like how do you? So initially there was like a location was trust. If you are in this network in this firewall, you are being trusted, right? That's cool. But then the Snowden leaks happened. I don't know when that was, but it was a while back. And the whole Google's internal infrastructure by NSA was compromised. And Joe Beda was working at Google at that time. It was like this went off like a bomb in Google, like a ticking time bomb. So the whole service was exposed
Hold on.
via a UI.
I'm not as aware of this, but I obviously know
Yep.
about the
And then
Snowden leaks. But what?
and then the Spiffy project was born. But things like that, I mean, with AI specifically, I think you are 25% more likely to be at sort of like at the door of these attacks, and it's increasing day by day. So that's one of the problems that I don't have an answer to. Like, how do you solve this access identity problem with AI agents and MCP?
Well,
A lot of people are using, yeah,
let's just take a step back and talk about the
yeah,
Malt book thing, right? Because I wasn't aware of the catastrophe of it, but I knew it had been vibe coded over a weekend or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Now, the interesting thing, right, is that the guy who did that probably thought this is going to be 20 minutes of fun on Hacker News. Maybe I'll get like 20 people using it and that's it. There's no point in putting effort into security because
You did
it's
no
not going to be
security
very,
reviews. No.
no. And then it was successful beyond his wildest dreams with like millions
Hmm.
of bots signing up and using it. I don't think so. That's a really interesting like problem, isn't it? Because I kind of agree with him that it wouldn't have been worth doing the security review before it was successful. But then it wasn't possible to do a security review at the point it became successful because it was so quick.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting problem of like security risk, isn't it?
Yeah. So we had the firewall thing, like location is trust. Then people started working remotely. Then came cloud services, microservices. And now, because of the Snowden example I gave, the whole network couldn't be trusted. Because if you're inside that network, you need to secure those services as well. Came secrets and stuff. But then the problem with secrets is that a lot of organizations suffer with secret sprawl,
Hmm.
secrets getting leaked. Developers care about velocity over security. Right? They're like, I want to ship fast. And almost every organization, like they have suffered. Like, people who are watching this, ask yourself, how many HashiCorp wards do you have right now? Who has access to that? Have you ever hard coded a secret? Do you have any secrets in your Git inits, Git repositories? Are you rotating your secrets and things like that? So
Mm.
secret sprawl is a big concern. But how do you apply that to now AI agents? So there's one term like identity is everything, where there are these open source projects like Spiffy. How do you solve this with AI agents, MCPs? I'm not sure.
Well, this
A
is
lot of
a
companies are
open
working on it.
research area, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna see some announcements soon. Let's see.
Yeah, Simon Willison talks about that lethal trifecta, doesn't he? Of where you've got personal data, you've got access to the cloud, and therefore un unsanitized instructions, and then you've got well, I can't remember what the third one is. Is it access to APIs, perhaps
Hmm.
something like that. So yeah, if you have all three together, then you basically end up in this security, compromised position where your agents could get up to anything. Yeah. So I mean, it is a super interesting area. Do you want to give any predictions about how you think things are going to evolve over the year from your position working with all these hackathons and developers?
Yeah, I think no one knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
and things will become more clearer in the next 3 years.
I'm sure in 3 years'
Everyone's
time, we'll just be worrying about a different new thing and we'll be like,
That's
oh,
what
yeah,
that was the way with Kubernetes. No
yeah.
one knew what they were doing. Red Hat came in and they're like, oh, we're gonna adopt Kubernetes. Bold move on their part. And then sort of like it became de facto. There were standards and stuff. Came CNCF, landscape tools, tooling around that. Right now, I think people are experimenting, trying stuff out, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it's an interesting new frontier, isn't it? I think.
There's a lot of stuff around. There's AI policies, government policies, and things like that as well. Give it a few years, we'll have a more standard approach to this.
I mean, one of the things we're seeing in Finos is, companies coming together to work on risk frameworks for AI.
Hmm.
and trying to decide what good looks like and what controls they need. But I think that is kind of operating almost like a level of like, let's establish what common sense looks like. It's trying to do that. Whereas I think on the other side of that is all the tool builders and people innovating in the space and trying, they like have like an idea, a concept of how things should work. And it's like, well, let's turn that into a product and try that out. And then we'll see if that sticks. And, I think that's where things like Kubernetes comes from. It's like where Google had this concept of how they wanted the cloud to work and sort of pushed it forwards. Maybe we'll see the equivalent of Kubernetes for AI soon. I don't know what that might look like, but something equivalent where it takes things like security and composability into account and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, we got a few couple of last questions then to round out, Kunal. I like to ask everybody if they can recommend some resources, but I mean, who do you listen to and who do you look at? I'd also maybe like just talk about your own, because you are a fairly prolific producer of resources.
The resources in terms of like AI and stuff?
I'm thinking
Cloud?
like blogs or writers or YouTube channels or podcasts that
Oh,
you
the
listen
ones
to,
I
that kind of
like.
thing.
Oh, okay. If I don't mention someone who's my friend, don't be upset because my brain is right now, so many ideas in the brain. Tech with Nana is awesome. I think she's really, really good in terms of explaining complex topics in simple ways. Obviously, I check out WeMakeDevs. We do a lot of nice events and you can win like amazing prizes. And it's all about learn by doing, which is what I focus on. Even if not WeMakeDevs, I would say get involved in open source or any other hackathons. In terms of like podcasts, I'm not a big podcast
No?
listener,
Okay.
which is ironic because I go to a lot of
Just turn up on
podcasts
them.
and I host as well sometimes. But there's this one called Stuff You Should Know. It's like a brain rot podcast. It's not tech. It's
Okay.
just like they pick a random topic, like why is peanut butter the way it is? And these two people would just go at it for like 2 hours.
Wow. Okay. So this is a
It's,
bedtime podcast, right?
yeah, Stuff You Should Know. And there's one called Science Unfiltered or something like D-Science or something. I don't know. Let me just look it up. This one's actually quite nice. So this one's shows Science Versus. This is a really nice one.
Okay.
I like Science Versus.
Right, I'll put a link in the description.
So this one is quite nice. They take a topic like the secret to happiness. Is AI making us? Oh, that's the new one. Is AI making us stupid? So there's one like chiropractors. Are they legit? So they
Nice. Yeah.
focus on the science of these topics. So they do a lot of research. They share you a lot of numbers, quotations, and stuff. So this is a really fun podcast. In terms of blogs, like I just follow nice people on LinkedIn and I just see what they post. And I go to a lot of events, so I see things there. TLDR is a good newsletter. I follow that.
Right.
TLDR and Hacker News Product Hunt. I would see what's trending on Product Hunt. Kubernetes blog is quite nice if you want to get involved in the ecosystem. Yeah. Anyone who gives a hot take, I don't follow them. I have a lot of friends who give hot takes. The thing with hot takes is like it's creator economy. You are giving hot takes to make money and get the followers, which is fine. I have a lot of friends who do that. Tech with Nana, for example, doesn't do that. She's like purely technical. Production quality is insane. And this is why I follow people like her. There's so much going on in life. I don't want to get involved in hot takes. Just
Yeah.
stop tech.
Fair enough.
Just give me like straightforward answers.
All right. So the last thing I wanted to touch on with you, because so normally I'd say, what do you do outside of your work? But you do so many things, right? We've already covered a bunch of stuff off. I'm kind of amazed at how you managed to do YouTube channels and hackathons and have a full-time job and all these other commitments that you have. So could you talk about like how you keep healthy with all this stuff going on? How you keep on top of that?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Obviously, sleep is a priority. So I got this Whoop thing, and it is nice. So one of the things I learned from Whoop is that your sleep is very important.
Right.
So if you go to bed at the same time and you wake up at the same time, a lot of problems in your life would be solved. It's that simple. Just
Yeah.
wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time.
It's not that
That's
simple.
all you need to do. Just do that, and you will see your Whoop data go like green, green, green.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's diet. I like moving around, so I'm working from home like today, but Cast is fully remote company, so we work from home. But I like going to the office sometimes. I like going to cafes and working from there. Obviously, diet is one of those. I'm not gonna give you like the de facto obvious answers. The one answer I'll give you that is personal to me is I work in the morning now. So I don't work at night. So I used
Right.
to. So I used to be like a night owl, and I know some people in the chat would be like, "No, I'm more productive at night." I read a lot of. I was like a big night owl, and I've realized like your willpower is not will on call, meaning you can't really direct your willpower whenever you want, and your willpower is strongest in the morning when you've woken up and the sun is up. So I have felt that transition was difficult, but now when I start my work really early in the morning, and I'm able to achieve a lot more. Also, I don't think the term we're looking for is work life balance. When we talk about work life balance, it's work life counterbalance. If you want to achieve great things, you have to do focused work. You can be distracted a lot. I would say do long focused hours rather than small hours of short focused work. And when you're doing focused work, you can tell your employees like, do not disturb on Slack. I'm in my focus work mode. You have a dedicated slot for meetings, you don't have notifications turned on, and things like that. Figure out what your triggers are that lead to distractions. If you're being distracted, block out those triggers. So I do focus work, and that helps. Being an early morning person has helped as well. Other than that, yeah, the other standard stuff: exercise, run if you want, be active, eat well, spend time with friends and family. But those are the two things that I do. Like morning person and well, sleep and focused work is very important.
Yeah, I'm much closer to you on this, right? However, some people I've spoke to about this definitely say, "Oh no, I prefer to do all my work in the evenings." So I think it obviously depends on the person,
Depends.
right?
Depends on the
But
person, definitely.
I think so in a broader term, I would say like it's good to experiment with this stuff, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
trying different
It
arrangements of
depends on your lifestyle. I don't have kids. I mean, I'm single as a yeah, I'm very single. So I don't have kids. I don't have any commitments. I live alone.
yeah.
So I have more flexible freedom. But I assume people who have kids, you have to get them ready. You have to, make food for their school and drop them off. And kids have classes and I don't know. So obviously you have much more going on in life. So like you said, yeah, it depends on the person and your lifestyle.
I love the way as well you said, "Oh no, it's really all you've got to do is go to bed at the same time every day and get up at the
That
same."
is just science. That is science.
Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you do that, right?
Yeah.
I even struggle with that, right? I've
Yeah.
struggled to get everything done in the day that I want, and then it gets later and later.
Yeah. So that was not a hot take. That is just science. If you go to
Yeah,
bed at the same time and you wake up at the same time, your health will be much better and you will literally feel it. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, yeah. And did you want to talk about stress at all? Is how you manage, how you're learning to
Yeah.
manage stress, or
So I get stressed if I'm not doing work. Because if I'm not, yeah. The reason is because imagine you have a deadline next week and obviously now you're stressed. My deadline is next week. Let's say you have 7 days. You're like, I'm stressed. I'm going to take some time off. 5 days go to Aruba or Peru or like Spain. After 5 days, you come and now you have 2 days left for the deadline. Would you be more stressed or would you be less stressed? You would be more stressed. So it's not like stress comes from working. Stress comes from not getting stuff done. So when I tick off stuff from my to do list, I get that feeling like, okay, I'm relaxed now. Things are done. I can relax. No stress. If I am taking time off and I have a lot of backlog, when I'm on my time off and when I come back, it's going to hit me. It's going to
Mm,
be much worse. So I would say the way to solve this is manage expectations, set realistic goals, achieve those goals, and you will not be stressed.
yeah, I think there's a lot more we could get into on that one. It's quite tricky because I find that when I go on a holiday, right, the first day
Yeah.
is the most stressful because I'm like thinking about all the stuff that I'm not doing. But then by the end of the holiday, I'm in a
Yeah.
totally different mindset. And then I come back and then there's this avalanche of nonsense, all the stuff that I haven't done. And then the stress is right back up again. And it's really interesting. It's like a sort of
Yeah.
but I
But
still think,
again, like it's also tied to like health and diet and sleep.
yeah. So, so this is something I talk about in the Risk First book as well as the health, not just of people, but of projects and of organizations and stuff. And I think all these risks, they all kind of impact on your health. And I think we've covered some good ground there. Well, listen, is there anything else you want to talk about, Kunal? Anything coming up that you want to plug or advertise or talk about? What's happening?
Yeah, if you're coming to KubeCon in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
there's Cube Auto Day on March 23rd. We have Kelsey Hightower speaking. We have like 800 people registered. It's a beautiful boathouse venue on the Amstel River, just 10 minutes from KubeCon walking distance. So you can come to that. It's free to register. And we are doing a conference in India, CloudX AI, March 14th. Check it out. Yeah, the only thing I would want to plug is Cast AI. If you're working with Kubernetes, you want to simplify your managements of your cloud infrastructure, performance, security, SLAs, all those things, and reduce your cost by up to 70%. Check out Cast AI, message me. I can give you like a free trial. It's quite simple to use, and you're not like locked into a provider. And we work with whatever the existing system people have. And lastly, we make devs. If you want to collaborate with our community, you can reach out to me. We have worked with like Meta, Cerebras, Docker. We have worked with over 50 companies, and it's growing. So if you want to have like thousands of developers using your project in a weekend, over a weekend, I'm the guy.
Right. And let's face it, the amount of feedback that you're going to get from that is
Too
going to
much,
be
a lot of feedback,
off the
thousands of
charts.
projects.
Yeah. All right, Kunal, that was absolutely brilliant. Thanks for spending the time talking to me. Really appreciate it. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.